the man with no emblem. The capital world of Etherian glittered beneath 3 silver moons. From orbit, the planet looked like a jewel suspended in darkness, its continents threaded with rivers of light and cities crowned with crystal towers. Every decade, the Galactic Unity Summit gathered the most powerful leaders in known space on Etherian, and this year was no different. War heroes, royal families, trade ministers, and military commanders arrived from hundreds of star systems. Each stepped from their ships wearing symbols of authority, golden crests, jeweled insignias, ceremonial armor, and medals earned across lifetimes. To the people of Etherian, emblems mattered. An emblem told everyone who you were before you even spoke. Princess Illyria Voss stood on a balcony overlooking the grand arrival hall, watching the delegates enter. The Prime Chancellor of Valora announced a herald. A tall alien crossed the marble floor, wearing a cape decorated with dozens of shining medals. The High Marshal of Terex. Another figure entered in polished armor covered with battle honors. The procession continued for nearly an hour. Then Illyria noticed something unusual. A human had just entered the hall. Humans were still relatively new to galactic politics. They had earned a reputation for determination and creativity, but few held positions among the galaxy's elite. What caught Illyria's attention wasn't that he was human. It was what he wasn't wearing. No crest, no insignia, no medals, no ceremonial decorations. His black uniform was completely plain. The man walked calmly through the hall as if nothing about him was unusual. Several nobles immediately noticed. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Who is that? A servant? Perhaps an assistant? One noble laughed openly. Lord Kales of Aranur, famous for his arrogance, stepped into the human's path. "Excuse me," Kales said loudly. "The staff entrance is on the opposite side of the palace." Several nearby delegates chuckled. The human stopped. For a moment, Illyria expected embarrassment or anger. Instead, the man simply smiled. "Thank you for the information," he replied politely. The response only encouraged more laughter. Kales looked him up and down. No emblem. No rank markings. No house crest. "Tell me, human, what exactly are you doing at a summit reserved for leaders?" The hall grew quieter. Everyone wanted to hear the answer. The human met Kales' gaze without any sign of discomfort. "I was invited." The simplicity of the reply triggered another wave of amusement. Kales smirked. "Of course you were." Without another word, the human continued walking. Illyria frowned. Most people would have reacted differently. Pride was common among diplomats and nobles. Yet the human seemed completely unaffected by the ridicule. That confidence bothered her more than any argument would have. Who was he? The answer came during the official registration ceremony. Delegates lined up before the royal officials to present their credentials. One by one, they displayed titles and honors. The Supreme Trade Minister, the Grand Admiral, the High Protector. Every introduction sounded more impressive than the last. Finally, the human stepped forward. An official accepted a small data tablet. The official scanned it. His expression briefly changed. Then he nodded. Representative Ethan Cole of Earth. That was all. No additional titles. No lengthy achievements. Just a name. The crowd exchanged confused looks. Even Illyria found herself disappointed. Surely there had to be more. Lord Kales laughed again. "A representative? Is that all?" Several nobles joined him. Ethan Cole merely accepted his identification pass and moved aside. Not once did he attempt to defend himself. Not once did he mention accomplishments. Not once did he demand respect. As the ceremony ended, delegates drifted toward the palace's great reception chambers. Illyria remained where she was, watching the human from above. Alone among hundreds of decorated officials, Ethan stood near one of the massive windows overlooking the city. The setting sun cast golden light across the crystal towers outside. While others competed for attention and influence, he seemed content simply observing. It made no sense. People without status usually try to prove themselves. People without recognition usually sought it. Yet Ethan Cole appeared to want neither. For the first time that day, Princess Illyria felt genuinely curious. Everyone in the palace had already judged the human by the absence of an emblem. But as she watched him quietly gazing over the city, she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone, including herself, might be missing something important. And somewhere deep inside, she suspected the man with no emblem was far more significant than he appeared. The salute that shocked the palace. The grand celestial banquet was the highlight of every Galactic Unity Summit. Beneath a ceiling of living crystal that shimmered like a night sky, hundreds of delegates gathered around immense circular tables. Soft music drifted through the hall while servants moved between guests carrying dishes from dozens of worlds. Princess Illyria sat beside her father, King Arcturus Voss, observing the crowd. Most conversations revolved around trade agreements, military alliances, and political rivalries. Yet one topic appeared again and again: the human. Ethan Cole sat alone at a modest table near the edge of the chamber. While nobles competed for attention and influence, he quietly enjoyed his meal. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Lord Cayley's certainly hadn't ignored it. "Remarkable," Cayley said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "A summit filled with the greatest leaders in the galaxy, and somehow a man without rank finds himself among us." Several nobles laughed. Ethan looked up calmly. "I assure you, Lord Cayley's, the food tastes exactly the same regardless of rank." A few delegates struggled to hide smiles. Cayley's frowned. The human's calm responses were becoming irritating. "You seem unusually confident for someone with no accomplishments displayed." Ethan simply returned to his meal. The lack of reaction only made Cayley's more annoyed. From across the hall, Illyria watched carefully. Something about Ethan continued to puzzle her. Most people revealed themselves under pressure. Pride, insecurity, anger, something always surfaced. Yet Ethan remained steady, as though the opinions of others carried little weight. Suddenly, the massive entrance doors opened. The music stopped. Conversations died instantly. Every head turned. The Royal Guard had arrived. At their head marched Commander Varric. Even among the galaxy's greatest military leaders, Varric was legendary. His battlefield victories were studied in academies throughout known space. His loyalty to the crown was unquestioned. The moment he entered, nobles rose from their seats. Some placed hands over their hearts. Others bowed respectfully. Varric acknowledged none of them. His armored boots echoed across the crystal floor. One by one, he passed ambassadors, governors, admirals, and royalty. Illyria expected him to approach the royal table. Instead, he continued walking, straight across the hall, toward Ethan Cole. Confused murmurs spread through the crowd. Ethan looked up from his seat as the commander approached. Then something impossible happened. Commander Varric stopped directly in front of the human. Without hesitation, the legendary commander snapped into a perfect military salute. The hall fell silent. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then every member of the Royal Guard followed their commander. Dozens of elite soldiers raised their hands in identical salutes. The sight was so shocking that several guests nearly dropped their glasses. Princess Illyria stared in disbelief. Her father leaned forward in his chair. Even the king looked stunned. The most respected military force in the kingdom was saluting a man with no emblem. A man everyone had mocked. Varric's voice carried through the silent chamber. "Good evening, sir." Ethan immediately stood. His expression showed genuine discomfort. "Commander, that's unnecessary." "With respect, sir," Varric replied, "it is entirely necessary." The silence somehow deepened. Lord Cayley's finally found his voice. "What is the meaning of this?" Every eye turned toward him. Cayley's pointed accusingly at Ethan. "Who is this man?" Varric's gaze shifted toward the noble. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Someone to whom I owe my life." The statement struck the hall like a shock wave. Whispers erupted everywhere. "Oh, his life. What does that mean? When did this happen?" Cayley's looked stunned. "Then explain it." Varric remained motionless. "No." The single word carried the weight of a command. Cayley's opened his mouth again, but quickly thought better of it. Few people challenged Commander Varric directly. Meanwhile, Ethan looked almost embarrassed by the attention. "Commander," he said quietly, "please, this isn't why we're here." Varric's stern expression softened slightly. "As you wish, sir." To everyone's amazement, the commander lowered his salute and stepped aside. But the damage was already done. The mystery had exploded. Throughout the banquet, whispers spread from table to table. Questions multiplied faster than answers. Who was Ethan Cole? What had he done? Why would Commander Varric, a warrior respected across the galaxy, salute him publicly? Princess Illyria found herself paying little attention to the rest of the evening. Her eyes repeatedly drifted toward the quiet human. The pieces didn't fit. A man with no rank, no medals, no insignia. Yet somehow one of the greatest military commanders in existence treated him with extraordinary respect. By the time the banquet ended, Illyria had made a decision. She would uncover the truth herself, because for the first time in her life, she realized that the most important person at the summit might be the one everyone had overlooked. The hero hidden behind simplicity. Princess Illyria did not sleep that night. Long after the banquet had ended and the palace corridors had fallen silent, one question continued to echo through her mind. Who was Ethan Cole? The image of Commander Varric saluting him replayed again and again. Varric was not a man who offered respect lightly. He had commanded fleets through impossible battles and stood beside kings and admirals without lowering his head. Yet he had saluted Ethan as though honoring a superior officer. And Ethan had looked uncomfortable receiving it. That detail disturbed her most. People usually enjoyed recognition. Ethan seemed determined to avoid it. Before sunrise, Illyria entered the royal archives. The vast chamber stretched for hundreds of meters beneath glowing crystal domes. Countless records of galactic history were stored within its data vaults. An elderly archivist greeted her. "Your Highness, I need information on a human named Ethan Cole." The archivist typed the name into a console. For a moment, nothing appeared. Then a security warning flashed across the screen. "Restricted records." Illyria frowned. Restricted? That alone was unusual. After providing royal authorization, the file slowly opened. What she found left her speechless. 20 years earlier, the galaxy had faced one of its darkest conflicts. The Voric incursion. A brutal war that had consumed dozens of star systems. Entire worlds had fallen. Millions had died. Illyria had studied the war in school, but only from historical summaries. The classified reports revealed a far darker reality. One battle in particular caught her attention. The Battle of Caro's Reach. Commander Varric had been a young fleet captain then. His task force had been ambushed deep behind enemy lines. Outnumbered, outgunned, cut off from reinforcements. The reports described the situation as hopeless. Varric's fleet had been expected to perish within hours. Then a small human task force arrived. 3 ships. Only 3. Illyria stared at the tactical recordings. The odds were absurd. The human ships should have retreated. Instead, they charged directly into the enemy formation. At their head was a young officer, Lieutenant Ethan Cole. The recordings showed him leading the attack personally. Again and again his ships struck enemy positions, creating openings for trapped Allied vessels. Several times he ignored orders to withdraw. Several times he risked destruction to rescue stranded crews. The battle lasted nearly 16 hours. When it ended, thousands of soldiers who should have died were alive, including Varric. Illyria continued reading. The deeper she searched, the more incredible the story became. Caro's Reach was not an isolated incident. There were dozens of similar reports. Evacuation missions, rescue operations, humanitarian actions during wartime. Everywhere Ethan's name appeared, the pattern remained the same. Lives saved, civilians protected, soldiers rescued. Then she reached the final report. Following the war, Ethan had been nominated for some of the highest military honors available. Every recommendation had been declined. Every promotion refused. Every award rejected. His official statement contained only one sentence. "The people we lost deserve remembrance more than I deserve recognition." Illyria sat silently. For the first time, she understood. The absence of medals wasn't because Ethan lacked achievements. It was because he had chosen not to display them. The realization filled her with unexpected shame. She had judged him exactly as everyone else had. by appearances, by symbols, by status. She closed the archive and stared into the distance. Commander Varric's salute suddenly made perfect sense. No emblem could fully represent what Ethan had done. No medal could summarize the lives he had saved. No title could measure the respect he had earned. A sudden alarm shattered the silence. Red lights flashed across the archive ceiling. The emergency warning echoed through the palace. Security breach. Security breach. Illyria immediately rose. Moments later, guards rushed into the chamber. Your Highness, what happened? We don't know yet. Multiple security systems have failed. Another explosion shook the building. The floor trembled beneath her feet. Across the palace, screams began to rise. The summit delegates were still present. Hundreds of leaders from across the galaxy. A perfect target. Illyria's stomach tightened. This isn't an accident. The guard nodded grimly. No, Your Highness. Outside the archive windows, emergency sirens lit the city. Somewhere within the palace, unknown enemies had launched an attack. And for the first time since arriving at the summit, Princess Illyria found herself hoping that Ethan Cole was nearby, because she now understood what everyone else had failed to see. The quiet human without an emblem wasn't simply a diplomat. He was a hero, and the palace was about to need one. The honor no emblem could hold. The palace was descending into chaos. Emergency lights painted the crystal corridors red as alarms echoed through every level of the royal complex. Delegates rushed in every direction. Guards shouted conflicting orders, and frightened civilians searched desperately for safety. Princess Illyria sprinted through the corridor alongside a squad of royal guards. Report, she demanded. A communications officer answered breathlessly. Multiple explosions. Security networks have been compromised. Unknown attackers are inside the palace. Another tremor shook the floor. Somewhere nearby, blaster fire erupted. The summit had become a battlefield. As they reached the Grand Assembly Hall, Illyria found hundreds of delegates trapped inside. Panic was spreading rapidly. Then she saw him. Ethan Cole stood near the center of the hall. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't panicking. He was assessing, watching, calculating. Within seconds, he had identified the exits, the security positions, and the vulnerable areas of the chamber. Commander Varric reached him. Sir, Ethan looked toward the commander. What do we know? Enemy infiltrators have disabled the central defense grid. How many? Unknown. Ethan nodded once. The answer didn't seem to surprise him. Then something remarkable happened. Without hesitation, he began issuing orders. Seal Corridor 7. The nearest guards moved immediately. Move civilians away from the eastern entrances. Another group obeyed. Create evacuation lanes. Keep everyone moving. No bottlenecks. The instructions came quickly and clearly. There was no shouting, no confusion, just calm authority, and everyone listened. Not because of rank, not because of titles, but because he sounded like someone who knew exactly what needed to be done. Illyria found herself following his directions as naturally as everyone else. Minutes later, armed attackers burst into the outer corridor. The first wave was met by organized defensive positions Ethan had established moments earlier. The assault stalled immediately. What are they after? Illyria asked. Ethan's expression hardened. The summit. She understood instantly. If the attackers succeeded, hundreds of governments could lose their leaders in a single day. The resulting chaos could destabilize the entire galaxy. The attack wasn't merely terrorism. It was an attempt to shatter interstellar peace. Another explosion rocked the palace. But this time the defenders were ready. For the next hour, Ethan coordinated evacuations, defense lines, and rescue operations. Again and again, he placed himself where the danger was greatest. Again and again, lives were saved because of decisions made within seconds. Eventually, royal reinforcements arrived from across the capital. The attackers were surrounded, then defeated. At last, the alarms fell silent. The summit was safe, and so were its delegates. The following day, the Grand Assembly Hall was filled once more. But the atmosphere had changed completely. No one laughed when Ethan entered. No one questioned his presence. No one noticed the lack of an emblem. They were too busy standing in respect. King Arcturus rose from his throne. Yesterday, our kingdom faced a disaster unlike any in recent memory. The hall grew silent. The king continued. Because of one man's leadership, courage, and sacrifice, countless lives were saved. His gaze settled on Ethan. Ethan Cole stepped forward. The human approached reluctantly. The king lifted a ceremonial medal, the highest honor in the Stellar Kingdom. Gasps spread through the audience. Very few individuals had ever received it. It would be my privilege to award you this decoration. For a moment, the hall waited. Then Ethan smiled gently. Your Majesty, I'm honored, but I must respectfully decline. Whispers spread through the chamber. The king looked surprised. May I ask why? Ethan glanced around the room. At the delegates. At the guards. At the people who had survived. Because the reward was seeing everyone go home alive. Silence followed. A powerful silence. Commander Varric stepped forward. If I may, Your Majesty. The king nodded. Varric turned toward the assembly. Many of you asked why I saluted Ethan Cole. The hall listened carefully. Years ago, my fleet was destroyed. My crew was dying. We had been abandoned and forgotten. He paused. Ethan Cole came for us. The commander's voice grew stronger. He saved my people. He saved thousands of others. And when the war ended, he asked for nothing in return. Varric looked directly at the crowd. That is why I salute him. The commander raised his hand. Immediately, every member of the royal guard followed. A perfect salute. This time no one seemed shocked, because now they understood. One by one, delegates throughout the hall rose to their feet. Military leaders, governors, ambassadors, even Lord Kayleys. Soon the entire chamber stood. Princess Illyria stepped forward. Her voice carried clearly across the room. Yesterday, I learned something important. The hall turned toward her. I was taught that emblems represent honor. She looked at Ethan. But true honor does not come from symbols. Her eyes swept across the crowd. It comes from actions. A wave of agreement moved through the assembly. Ethan stood quietly as hundreds of people saluted him. No medals, no titles, no insignia, no emblem. Yet in that moment, he possessed something far greater than any symbol could provide. The respect an entire galaxy. And as the royal guard held their salute, Princess Illyria realized a truth she would never forget. The greatest heroes are often the ones who never asked to be recognized at all. The end. Thanks for watching video, like and comment. Subscribe my channel.